Happy Black Friday and welcome to CrimeCon at Home Holiday Escape. I hope everybody had a fabulous Thanksgiving. I know I did. I'm Cheryl McCollum, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's event. I am so excited, y'all, that I get to hang out with you and watch this special together. Just like Thanksgiving dinner, we got a little bit of everything for you in the next hour. We'll be talking to Kelly Siegler, Joe Scott Morgan, me, and much, much more. But it doesn't stop there. After we wrap up here, we're headed right over to Oxygen True Crime to watch their brand new special, The Pike County Murders, a Family Massacre, premiering tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. As always, CrimeCon would like to thank Oxygen True Crime for its support in making these events happen. For free, honey. You can't beat that right here at Christmas time. And for everyone like me who can't wait to get together in person again, CrimeCon is headed to Nashville in just 189 days. I think I can hold out 189 days. Now let's get into it. We're kicking tonight off with a fascinating case breakdown from my friend, somebody in my Zone 7, Joe Scott Morgan.
Hello, everyone. I hope that you're having a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. And thank you for joining us here at CrimeCon at Home Holiday Escape, presented by Oxygen True Crime. As you know, I've been following the murders of the Rhoden family in Pike County, Ohio now for a number of years. And just very briefly, I'd like to take you through what happened in this tragic case. First off, it's important to remember that the Rhoden murders, and they've been known by a couple of different names, but probably the Rhoden murders kind of synthesizes everything down because it was an attack on a single family by another family, the Wagners, that was planned, premeditated over an extended period of time in order to essentially eradicate an entire generation of people from this one family. And to make things even more tragic, this all evolved out of a child custody issue over a single child that connected both of these families. The Rhodens and the Wagners both lived in an isolated area, southern Ohio. It's literally rural Appalachia. It's beautiful countryside, bucolic, green rolling hills, rivers and streams. And for as much beauty as exists in that location, there's one thing that many people don't have much of, and that's money. It's a hard scrabble living. It's a location where individuals have to do what they have to do for their families. Sometimes they can do that legally, and sometimes they have to go outside the law in order to earn a living. The Rhoden murders, or as they've also been known, the Pike County Massacre, involved everything from illegal drugs to cockfighting, to anger, jealousy, rage. So on the morning of April 22nd, 2016, in an area of Pike County, Ohio, that is essentially unincorporated. I heard people say, as pretty as the place is, you almost had to pipe in sunshine because of the nature of the isolation that everybody lived in. That morning on April 22nd, family members began to worry about where the extended Rhoden family was. They had not gotten up, gone to jobs. They were not responding to phone calls. And when one family member visited the home of Dana Rhoden, they walked in and they discovered something that extended beyond anything that most of us could ever imagine. In the home of Dana Rhoden, they discovered her dead back in her back bedroom. And that set in motion one of the largest homicide investigations in the history of the state of Ohio, because it wasn't just Dana that died that night in her home. It was 8 others. And what makes this particularly interesting and complex is the fact that all of these homicides took place in one night in 4 different locations in an area so isolated that there had to be more than one person conducting these executions. And make no mistake, that's what they are. As these crimes began to unfold and begin to be examined, some interesting things came to light relative to the thoughts of locals as well as the local police departments that were involved in this investigation. At first, it was put forward that perhaps a drug cartel had come in and eradicated the entire family. But here's the problem. The entire family wasn't eradicated. There were 3 small children that were left alive. As a matter of fact, there was a newborn child that was left adjacent to his deceased mother's body and seemingly placed immediately adjacent to her exposed breast so that that child could nurse during the night after its mother had been executed. This led the authorities on a wild ride, and the ride to this day is still going on. As a forensic scientist, it gave me pause when I suddenly began to appreciate the expanse of what the police were having to do here. Just when you take a look, for instance, simply at the drone footage of the scene, you have interconnected properties that extend yards and yards off of the little road that some of these homes were positioned on. And there are old rusted out cars all on these properties. You had multiple outbuildings that apparently had surveillance equipment hooked up to them, and later found out that the hard drives were missing out of one in particular, which goes to the idea of planning in this particular case. The volume of evidence that was going to have to be considered in this case was something that at that moment in time, the police, I don't think, knew what they had to do. But here is one other point relative to this case that makes it stand out among all others that I've ever covered in the media. And it's the fact that each one of these scenes took place in a mobile home. Now, there are 4 of these movable homes. Amazingly, each one of these homes was removed from their initial setting on the properties where these homicides took place. Can you imagine an entire team of crime scene investigators, truckers, everybody else that would have been involved in this from a technical standpoint, from an investigative standpoint, as well as an engineering standpoint, having to uproot full-size mobile homes that have been there for years and years, place them on functional axles, hook them up to trucks, and drive them to another location where they could be more thoroughly examined and, according to the police, secured. So each one of these crime scenes involved a mobile home, and all 4 of those mobile homes were taken back to this safe and secure location for further processing. This octuple, 8-person homicide took over 3 years to investigate, and it led the local police as well as the state police, with assistance from the federal government, to locations in rural Appalachia, in Ohio, to Canada, where the Wagner family, who were the primary suspects in this case, had crossed the border, and finally wound up in Alaska, where investigators had to track them down up there and sit and talk with them for hours and hours and hours before they were satisfied that the Wagners were in fact the perpetrators. And it was only when the Wagners decided to return back to the lower 48 that they were finally arrested and put on trial. In all my years as a forensic scientist and medical legal death investigator in 2 major cities in the United States, I don't ever recall working a case that was not just so detailed and complicated, complex. But I, to the best of my recollection, I don't recall anything that was quite as gruesome or heartbreaking as this case was. Because what we have found out in the course of a couple of trials now related to the Rodens massacre was that these children that were left behind, when they were recovered, they were bathed in blood, the blood of the victims, three of these children were left alone in the homes with these bodies after they had been executed in the middle of the night. It's hard to take the measure of it because this is the largest crime scene investigation in the history of Ohio homicide investigations. And in addition to that, they had to deal with 4 crime scenes over the course of one night. You had 8 victims, 4 locations, 3 babies left alive at the scene. And, you know, as far as I was concerned, when I first began to review the case files, I knew from the beginning that this was overkill, that this was something that was very personal, that this is something that had nothing to do with some kind of organized crime, drug cartel. This was something that was very, very personal. At this point, there's still one more trial left to go. And hopefully, at the conclusion of that trial, the Rodens and all of their family members will receive the justice that they so richly deserve. There's so much more to this tragic tale. I hope that you'll join me tonight for the world premiere of the Pike County Murders, a family massacre, on the Oxygen Network. It's a 3-part docuseries. And also, don't forget, please join me, Joseph Scott Morgan, on Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan on Apple and iHeart. Thanks again, and happy holidays.
I think my brother-in-law's dead. There's blood all over the house.
Who could have killed 8 family members in one night?
4 crime scenes, no DNA, no witnesses.
The killer left those children laying in their mother's blood.
The word that comes to mind is overkill.
The smaller the town, the bigger the secrets.
The Pike County Murders, a family massacre. Special event premieres tonight at 8, only on Oxygen True Crime.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining CrimeCon at Home, Holiday Escape. I'm Angeline Hartman from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I hope everyone out there had a great Thanksgiving, and I'm still full. I know I ate too much like I do every year, but either way, I hope you had a good holiday. Now, here at the National Center, we know that the holidays can be a tough time for the families we work with. I want to take this opportunity to share a few cases that could really use your help. The first one is Raymond Green. He was a baby who was just 5 days old when he was abducted. If you were at CrimeCon in Las Vegas, you may remember his story. I did a session with Raymond's mother, Donna Green. She's an incredible woman who's been through a lot, trying to find her son. And I know it was so good for her to share her story with all of you at CrimeCon because you guys really let her know that you do care and are willing to help her find Raymond. I mean, she even got a standing ovation at the end of this. So, Raymond's story starts like this. He was born on November 1st, 1978 at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. At the hospital, Donna met a woman who said she was there because her sister had just given birth. Now, this woman told Donna that her name was Lisa Morris. Now, Donna says that Lisa was friendly and they had several conversations while Donna was there. And then a few days later, that same woman showed up at Donna's home. Now, that visit seemed fine and the woman was there for a while. And then at some point, the woman offered to let Donna take care of business. You know how it is. Like when you're with a new mom, you say, hey, go ahead, take a nap. I got the baby, right? Well, Donna decided to jump in the shower and This woman, Lisa, said she would take care of the baby. Donna's brother was also home at the time, and Donna, asked her brother to keep an eye on the baby too. And so that happens, and then after a little while, Donna comes back downstairs, and what do you think happened? Both the woman and the baby were gone. Just like that. So according to Donna's brother, this Lisa woman picked up Raymond after he started crying and walked around, and then eventually was at the front door and walked out the front door. And she never came back. That was 45 years ago. Now, Donna just held an event in Atlanta to mark the 45 years since he's been missing, and she says she knows she's going to find him out there. And one of the hardest things to hear about this case, every time I talk about it, it shocks people, is when I tell them that Donna never had a photo of Raymond. Imagine that, a mom who never had a photo of her baby. Now, the early sketches you see of Raymond and the abductor were created from Donna's memory. The National Center has created age progression images based on photos from Raymond's siblings. And so we want you to take a close look at not just our images of Raymond, but the image of his abductor, created by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Now, this woman said her name was Lisa Morris, but that may have been a fake name, right? So she was wearing a headscarf, and Donna remembers she had a mole, but all these years later, Donna can't really remember which side of the face that the mole was on, but she knows that woman had a mole. Today, Raymond would be 45 years old, and we believe he may be out there alive with no idea of his real identity. So this is a case that can definitely be solved. Aziz Khan. He disappeared on Thanksgiving weekend 6 years ago. It was November 27th, 2017, and Aziz was just 7 years old at the time. Now, let me set the stage for you. Aziz's parents are Abdul Khan and Rabia Khalid. They were living outside of New Orleans, Louisiana, and had been going through this custody dispute, right? It's pretty bitter. Now, they were separated in 2014 and had shared custody of Aziz. And at some point, Aziz's mom moved from New Orleans to Atlanta, Georgia, for a new job, and she wanted to be closer to her family. So Aziz's dad did what he could to make that long-distance custody arrangement work. Abdul would visit Aziz every other weekend, and then he would bring back Aziz back to New Orleans and then drive him back to Atlanta so he could be with the rest of the family. And, it was a lot of work to make it happen, but they did it. And Aziz was very happy with this arrangement, according to his dad. Now, the dad says that Aziz's mom made it really difficult over time to see Aziz. So that led to a new custody battle, and that went on for several years. So then in 2017, the courts were getting ready to grant Abdul full custody of his son. Cops say that the mom knew she would lose custody of her son, and that's when she vanished with Aziz. By this time, she had remarried, so she has a new husband, and he's gone too. So it's important to tell you that Aziz's mom is charged with felony kidnapping. Her new husband is not charged with anything, but we don't know where he is. And so investigators are looking for the couple and Aziz. No one has seen or heard from any of them in nearly 7 years, and there's been no indication about where they could have gone. But here's what I want you to know about this case. These three should be very easy to recognize. We have a new age progression photo of Aziz. He's now 13 years old. We have great pictures of his mom. And if her husband is with them, I say this trio is very recognizable. I want to share with you one more case, and I just know that we can find this child together. Her name is Janiyah Walker. She was 15 years old when she mysteriously vanished from her home in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on June 23rd, 2022. Now, Janiyah was supposed to meet her dad at around 4 p.m. that day. But when her dad went to pick her up at home, Janiyah was gone. Police say that Janiyah was last seen on a neighbor's Ring camera at around 2:30 p.m. that afternoon. You can see the video. That day, Mom kept trying to call Janiyah's phone and it was going straight to voicemail. That's when she knew something was wrong. I've spoken with Janiyah's mother many times. Her name is Tanisha Howard, and she is just heartbroken over this. Tanisha said this is very unlike her daughter to just go off without telling anyone. She says she and Janiyah were very close at that time, and Janiyah has never run away from home before. About that backpack, Mom says that she never saw it before. She didn't recognize it in that video. But she does remember that Janiyah did receive a big box in the mail a couple of weeks before this. So at that time, Janiyah said she had ordered some kind of bag because she was going to use it for camping eventually. Mom believes it's very possible that Janiyah was groomed online and lured away from her home. That's the only explanation that Mom can come up with right now. And that's a tough explanation. Janiyah is now 16 years old, and it has been more than a year since she left that day. If Janiyah was lured away, she could be in real danger right now, and it's going to take everybody looking out for her to help bring her home. In all of these cases, I've had the honor of working closely with these families, and I can tell you that they are so grateful for you and all of the support out there. We know that in every case, it just takes one person to spot the right thing at the right time and make that call. So please stay alert, everybody. You never know when that one person might be you. If you want to find out more information about who's missing in your area, please go to missingkids.org. Again, thank you so much for all of your support. I'm Angeline Hartman. Happy holidays, everybody.
I want to see my daughter.
That's not possible.
Why? I'm a danger?
There was a lot of animosity between the two families.
Sometimes murder.
She wanted him out of the picture, and he would do anything for her, including murder.
Is a family affair.
It's eerie seeing this person executing his stepfather.
What you have at the center of it is this family feud.
Somebody wanted him dead, and they shot him.
Fatal Family Feuds. New episodes Saturdays at 9, only on Oxygen True Crime.
It's beautiful on the outside, but there is a dark underbelly in Los Angeles.
Every Friday, the City of Angels.
You're talking about 4 million people hoping to get their shot.
Has its demons.
Crime in Los Angeles was off the hook.
She went to the Hollywood Hills for an audition, and she hasn't returned.
Drugs, money, the party scene.
There were just so many serial killers.
The Real Murders of Los Angeles. New episodes Fridays at 9, only on Oxygen True Crime.
You can't make this up, okay?
Sundays.
It's tough to kind of think about the last time you see someone.
The investigation begins.
Last time I saw her was when she walked out the door.
I texted asking if she was okay, and she never texted back.
With her last encounter.
We were able to go look at the security footage. She's smiling, she's laughing. I wanted to pull her off the screen and take her home.
Final moments. New episodes Sundays at 7, only on Oxygen True Crime.
They had money, the nice cars, the furs, the jewelry.
They lived in this beautiful home in a high-rent zip code.
You could tell there was problems.
He had woken up one night and Lisa was pointing a gun at his head.
We had a kidnapping and we had a murder.
I did not kill my husband. I'm not that kind of person.
Snapped. New episodes Sundays at 6, only on Oxygen True Crime.
His behavior was escalating. She was acutely aware of the danger in front of her.
Every Wednesday.
And to think that he could actually shoot her in the head.
The word disturbing doesn't begin to describe what we heard.
The best team in true crime is back.
What are the odds that that person who was missing is still alive?
Re-examining their most notable cases.
Did you want her dead?
No. Why would I want her dead? I don't know how remorse is supposed to look, but I don't think I'm seeing it.
Dateline Unforgettable. New episodes Wednesdays at 8, only on Oxygen True Crime.
I am so excited to announce the CrimeCruise. Y'all ain't even ready. I don't even know if I should tell you. It's going to be that extraordinary. Y'all need to sit down. Y'all might need to hold on to something. It's that incredible. We are going to be aboard the Royal Caribbean Independence of the Seas, November 2nd through the 7th. Are y'all ready? We are going somewhere I've never been in my whole life, a private island in Haiti. And from there, we are going to go to Falmouth, Jamaica. I don't even know what to do with myself. And not only are we going to be on a private island on this beautiful ship, and then Jamaica, we got, y'all know who, those pregnant eyes, Paul Holes. I ain't done. I'm going to have Paul Holes on a private island along with Matt Murphy. Yes, I said it. Both of them. You ain't got to decide. Who would I rather have a drink with? Who would I rather see on the Lido deck? You got them both. Got them both. And in the middle of all of that just paradise, we're going to hopefully be able to solve some cases, move some cases forward, help some victims, and we're going to do it all together, like we always do. So go and get those tickets, and I will see you on board.
When a murder happens and the investigation starts to wrap up and conclude and charges are being filed, that's just the beginning of what's required to get that case ready to go to trial.
What Kelly did, recreating her take on what happened, was genius. It was courtroom theater.
My name is Kelly Siegler, and I am involved with this new show called Prosecuting Evil on Oxygen True Crime. I grew up in a world of a courthouse and the way the criminal justice system worked in Texas. I started working as a Harris County prosecutor when I was 23 years old. And now that I'm older and wiser, I can tell you that every trial that I had, and I had over 200, every cop that I ever worked with, and then the families and the heartbreak that came from meeting all of them, I learned from them.
Kelly absolutely is known for the great level of empathy that she has for the victims of any violent crime.
I get asked the question a lot, how do you stay grounded when you see for so many years the horrible things that people do to one another? There's no way you can live this life and work in this world and not let it affect you. If it doesn't make you harder and more scared and more aware, then I think there's something wrong with you. It's got to change you.
That's not a stab like this, like you're mad, like you're afraid, like you can't stop.
It would only take one juror to say I'm not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. But Kelly Siegler doesn't back down. She wouldn't back down to the devil himself.
When you're a prosecutor, your job is to seek justice. It feels so funny to look at all this stuff because it was such a part of my life 20 years ago. And all of these things are such an important part of the story. So all y'all cold justice fans, think about this. You're used to seeing the investigation and hoping that we get to the point to where we have enough evidence to file charges and move forward. What Prosecuting Evil does is take you from that point forward. How do you put the case together to present it in the courtroom, in the criminal justice system? And the walk that the families take from the moment their loved one is murdered all the way through and beyond a conviction if that happens. Motive is not a legally required element to prove in a murder case. I bet y'all didn't all know that. But we were also taught the whole time we were prosecutors, if you don't prove motive, you're probably gonna lose.
Kelly did her homework, his homework, and everybody else's homework. Yes, you did.
One of the cases that we're super excited to talk to y'all about is one of the biggest trials that I handled in Harris County. The defendant was Dror Goldberg, and the victim was Manuela Silverio. Her daughters you're going to get to meet. They're going to tell you, like I hope every one of our cases does, what it's really like to walk and live through the criminal justice system. You get to see from the inside out, from the upside to the top, from the bad to the good, the criminal justice system at its finest and at its worst.
Then we hear $20,000 to get him out. And we were
livid.
I was really surprised that this was allowed to happen after all the difficulty we had in locating him.
And these prosecutors from the other counties in Texas that you're going to get to see, they are the best. So when you get to hear what they talked about as far as how they prepared these cases to go to trial, all these cool pieces of the story, and all the very stressful moments that we had that no one's ever talked about, those are the things that are going to make you really want to watch Prosecuting Evil, I promise.
And now, a sneak peek of Prosecuting Evil with Kelly Siegler.
Oh, I looked the devil in the eye.
A mysterious man walks into a family-owned Houston wig shop on the busiest shopping day of the year and stabs 3 people in broad daylight for reasons that nobody can understand. Manny Silverio, a longtime employee at the wig shop, was murdered that day. The owners of the wig shop, Roland and Roberta Ingrando, were seriously injured, and their lives were forever changed. Oh my God. How are you?
Fine, thank you. So
look
long
beautiful.
to see you. Ooh. You look gorgeous.
So do you? You look just the same.
Thank you. 24 years went by.
Almost 25.
25 almost, yeah.
Wow. So the trial was in 2000.
Like yesterday.
Isn't it?
Every night I think about.
You want to talk about it? It's okay?
It's okay. I might cry, but...
That's all right. I'm crying too.
It was Friday the 27th of November. I decided to close early. So I went to go and lock the door, but he was faster than me. He barged in so fast, and Manny was there. She said, "You must be joking." I didn't even know he had a knife. I have the money in the drawer. I said, "You want the money here?"
So weird.
But wanted no money. Manny screamed. She screamed one scream. Manny slipped as he ran away, but in 2 steps, he got it. He did it like this to slice. I don't know what I didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It was just something out of the horror movie. I couldn't believe this happened to us.
Tomorrow.
The prosecutor is the voice for the victim and for their loved ones.
From executive producer Dick Wolf and the creators of Cold Justice.
I was a prosecutor for over 21 years. In 2004, I brought the brutalness of the crime into the courtroom.
One of the nation's toughest prosecutors takes you through even tougher cases.
Pre-9/11, it was a little easier to disappear.
This is like some Jeffrey Dahmer type stuff. This defendant, the personification of evil.
All we can try to get in the real world is justice.
Prosecuting Evil with Kelly Siegler. New episode tomorrow at 8, only on Oxygen True Crime.
Hello, all you beautiful CrimeCon attendees. I am Bob Mata, host of the True Crime podcast, Defense Diaries, and I am here, number one, to wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you had a day filled with family, friends, love, and of course, delicious food. And I hope that you got all your Black Friday deals today that you were looking for. Again, look, 2023, which is what I'm going to talk about in the year in true crime, it was incredible. I don't know that I've ever seen a year in all of my life, and I've been a criminal defense attorney for 20 plus years, and I've never seen a year like this where there have been more huge cases solved, more huge trials where convictions were gotten by the prosecution, more cold cases solved. It has been unbelievable, just an incredible year. So incredible that there's no way in the time that I've been allotted that I would be able to discuss everything that I would love to. So I'm just going to have to focus on what I consider to be the highlights for me of this incredible year in true crime. And look, the only thing that all of us care about in this true crime community is getting justice for the victims and their families. And the fact of the matter is, watching that process take place, watching it unfold is fascinating. It's why we do it. It's why we engage. It's because we want to know and we want to help when we can. So look, you have to start with Alec Murdaugh. That trial was unbelievable. The thing went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Creighton Waters and his team did an amazing job putting that case together and ultimately getting justice for both Paul and Maggie, whose lives were stolen by Alec Murdaugh. So he ends up going down on a massive conviction, and they're not done with him. They're coming after him now for all the financial crimes with respect to the client's money that he had stolen. So I'm looking forward to that trial if he doesn't plead out. But that was the first bell ringer in 2023. And then that was followed up by the explosive Lori Vallow case, who of course was convicted, and justice was served to both JJ, her son, and Tylee, her daughter, as well as Tammy Daybell for conspiracy to commit murder, as all three of them received justice in an explosive trial, really, which wasn't televised, but they did give us the audio for it. It was so fascinating in so many respects, just to try to understand how warped and twisted Lori Vallow was, and for the prosecution to weave their way through that case where it was all really circumstantial against her, but they were able to put together an incredibly solid case and secure the convictions that served justice for everybody that deserved it in that case. So that was an amazing case as well. We then have two active cases that have not gone to trial, which are both huge cases in the true crime world. We've got Abigail Williams and Liberty German in the Delphi case, where the arrest of Richard Allen took place last October. That case has gone completely off the rails procedurally. It is like no case that I've seen in recent memory in terms of what has been going on, not even getting to the guilt or innocence phase. We're just talking about getting to trial, and I have never seen anything like it. I am closely following that case because, again, at the end of the day, all I care about is getting justice for Abby and Libby in that case, and that can only happen if, number one, they have the right person or persons in the case, and if they do, that person gets a fair trial. Otherwise, the family will be subjected, more than likely, to another trial where they have to go through this nightmare again. We want to get it. We have to get it right the first time. So that case is in the middle of it all, as is the tragic Idaho 4 case, where we were seeking justice for those 4 beautiful kids. And at this point, the defendant in that case has been fighting tooth and nail through his attorney, Ann Taylor. That case is far, far away from going. I'd predict 2.5 years from going to trial. And it has been hard fought. And it is a case that will be massively consumed by all of us because all of us want to see justice for the kids. And it's just going to be one of those trials that's going to be a can't miss because it's got every element that you look for in a trial. So keep your eye out for that. Like I said, I don't think we're going to get that in this year. And I don't think we may get it towards the end of next year, like the end of next year, but I don't think that we're going to get it this year, but we'll see. In terms of what's going to go on with that, I predict that there will be tons of motion work in the coming months. So keep your eyes out for that. It'll be fascinating as well. We did get another massive conviction in Charlie Adelson's case, where we were seeking justice for Dan Markell. Obviously, that was an amazing case. Another tough circumstantial case. The state did an amazing job putting it together because there was no smoking gun evidence per se. It was all circumstantial evidence, and they did a masterful job presenting that case to the jury because Dan Markell, father of 2, was viciously murdered outside of his home, and they didn't know who did it initially. They end up finding out that there was a hit that was put in place. The 3 people that were directly responsible have all either been convicted or pled out. And then there was Charlie. They were looking for the masterminds. And so they just got a conviction on Charlie. And just last week, Donna Adelson, the mom, the puppet master, was just arrested and charged with the exact same things that Charlie was. So look for that trial to happen as the fight for Ruth Markell and her son continues, as they continue to try to get justice for the entire family and for Dan Markell. So I think that's going to have to do it. I wish I could talk to you all day, but I've run out of time. I hope that we see you all in Nashville this year. It's an amazing event. If you haven't been to it, make sure that you come, because you will be blown away at the amount of amazing people and talent there that just love the same things that you love, and that is true crime and talking about it, and all of us trying to understand why all these awful things in the world happen, and all of us seeking to get justice together. So looking forward to seeing you in Nashville, and have wonderful holidays. Talk to you later.
I'm Kelly Siegler, and I was a prosecutor for over 21 years.
From executive producer Dick Wolf and the creators of Cold Justice.
She 100% knew she was committing murder.
It's just evil that you don't see every day.
This was the biggest thing that had happened since David Koresh.
One of the nation's toughest prosecutors takes you through even tougher cases.
It never gets any easier, but this is why you do what you do.
Prosecuting Evil with Kelly Siegler. New series Saturdays at 8, only on Oxygen True Crime.
Most people will never know anybody that's been murdered.
Nobody can understand unless they've been there.
This is the moment you became the architect of a murder.
They see you as a monster.
You could have let her go.
What was it about you that said, I'm going to keep fighting?
It had to be a terrible time.
You fought pretty hard to find out who killed her. What do you think at that moment?
You've been chasing an unknown attacker for decades.
You ready for what's coming?
What most Americans think when they hear Hare Krishna is peaceful people. Nothing about making someone disappear.
Keith Ham wanted to take over the movement.
My father said he's not a real guru, and my family was destroyed.
You didn't go against Keith Ham? If you did, we didn't hear from you again.
Gripping cases, captivating stories, exceptional journalists. This is Oxygen True Crime.
It's just evil that you don't see every day.
I lost my best friend, and I'll never be the same because of that day.
She was ambushed in her driveway.
With our commitment, our passion, and our drive, you can't stop us.
We live and breathe true crime.
On the night of April 21st, 2016, tragedy struck Pike County, Ohio, when 8 members of the Roden family were shot and killed. 4 different crime scenes, no DNA, no witnesses. As officials began investigating the massacre, the truth they uncovered was far more shocking than anyone could have imagined. Here's a sneak peek of the upcoming Oxygen True Crime special event, the Pike County Murders, a family massacre.
The Wagners were the rich people of the town. I used to hang out with Jake and George. Their grandmother, Freddie, would spoil them all the time.
Frederica Wagner is Billy Wagner's mother. She's the mother-in-law of Angela Wagner. Frederica's got a little bit of flair to her. She stands in sharp contrast to Billy.
Billy worked for his mother, and Billy was also a trucker. Angela did work with Freddie to help with her horses and dogs.
Frederica and her husband, Bob, bought the Flying W Farm. It's this sprawling 1,700-acre property. They had a successful horse breeding business, and Frederica owned rental properties around the area. There have been estimates that they possibly are worth as much as $4 million. In Pike County, Ohio, that's an astronomical amount of money.
Warm weather's coming up. She needs to get rid of all this old fur that she can. I believe it makes her a lot more comfortable personally.
So tell me about this area. Is it very family-oriented, church-going?
Nobody knows a stranger around this parts of this.
Around through here, ain't nobody know a stranger.
And as far as family goes, I'm related to most of this town through one way or another. This would be the house where my sister Angela spent most of her life. She wasn't born here, but she was raised in here pretty much. I'm 20 years younger than my sister. I was 1.5 years older than George. I was 2.5 years older than Jake. We grew up as close as brothers would. Me and George and Jake, what we'd do most of the time, we'd go four-wheeler riding, or we'd go fishing, or hunting. Definitely seemed like George had more friends than Jake did. Jake was always different. He was the odd one out.
Please welcome our Pike County Dogwood Festival queen.
Lord, I just thank you for bringing us all together as a community.
I think my brother-in-law's dead. There's blood all over the house.
Who could have killed 8 family members in one night?
I lost my best friend, and I'll never be the same because of that day.
4 crime scenes, no DNA, no witnesses.
The killer left those children laying in their mother's blood.
The word that comes to mind is overkill.
Who was the mastermind?
I'm telling you, if they frame us, I'm not sitting in prison.
One thing I learned, the smaller the town, the bigger the secret.
After tonight's conclusion of CrimeCon at Home Holiday Escape, don't miss the premiere of the Pike County Murders, a family massacre at 8, only on Oxygen True Crime.
Welcome back to the CrimeCon Holiday Escape. Tonight, I am thrilled to introduce y'all to one of my best friends in the true crime genre, somebody from my Zone 7. Tonight, you get to hear from the one and only Kathy Scott. Kathy not only wrote a book, she wrote the book on Tupac Shakur. Tonight, we are talking all about that case and how she was the first one on the scene as a reporter. She is an award-winning author. She's written numerous books. She's got one coming out that y'all are all gonna want. We'll get her to talk about that one too. Ladies and gentlemen, Kathy Scott.
Thanks so much for that wonderful introduction, Cheryl. Appreciate it.
Listen, we got to get right to it. You were the first reporter on the scene after the murder of Tupac Shakur. How did that happen?
Well, I got a phone call in the middle of the night, and I didn't even know he was going to be in town. I knew who Tupac was, by the way, because I was a big I watched MTV, and so I was familiar with one song of his, and that was Dear Mama, which makes me tear up every time I hear it. But so I get a call in the middle of the night and from a source saying that I needed to go straight to the Las Vegas Strip, that a big rapper by the name of Tupac Shakur, the source couldn't even pronounce his name because he didn't know who he was. He just knew he was a big deal. And so I just gathered myself. I was in bed, so I gathered myself together and grabbed my notebook and paper and pencil and headed down to the Strip.
Now, where the vehicle was is not where the shooting occurred, and we call that a rolling crime scene. Tell us about that.
Interesting, a rolling. Well, this one rolled because it started at Koval and Flamingo, where Tupac was sitting with in a car with Shug. Shug, his record producer, was driving, and they were playing the music really loud. He's all hyped up. Tupac's headed to perform. Everybody knew that he was performing that night. Flyers were out. It was all over the radio, and there was a line wrapped around the building where Tupac was headed 2 miles down the road, and then a white Cadillac came up and a guy put his arm out and opened fire.
You know, one thing that sticks out for me is some of our conversations were just common sense. Like, you've got somebody that physically was in an altercation with him. You cannot ignore that person.
Yeah, you know, 2 + 2 = 4. I mean, you need motive, opportunity, and means, as you well know, and all three were there to commit a crime. So the motive was Tupac and Suge. They were coming out of the MGM Grand after watching the Mike Tyson and Bruce Seldon fight, and there at the elevator bank was a kid out of Compton, gangbanger, and Trayvon and Tupac's entourage. They were all coming back. Well, Orlando didn't have a ticket, so he's waiting for his homies, you know, his little gangbangers out of South Central, waiting for him. And Trayvon, who was with Tupac, says, "Hey, that's little Orlando Anderson from Southside. He stole my necklace." And they just started beating up on him.
But again, when you're looking at the victimology and you're looking at the totality of somebody's life, the fact that he was in the ballet, the Nutcracker, as the Mouse King, and then his raps were actually poetry, that he started writing poetry. When you were researching the book, what other things did you find out about Tupac Shakur that shocked you?
That he basically was on his own. You know, his mother was a crackhead, and you know, in high school he just had a hunger for books, and he, you know, he wanted to be somebody. His mother would have her electricity shut off because she couldn't pay the bill, and he would go out and under the street lights he would read or he would write poetry, and he read Machiavelli. You know, that was his favorite book. But he was hungry for information, and you know, he wanted to learn, and he was self-made in that respect, and came up from his bootstraps in the worst possible conditions. And I think that's why there is so much interest in his murder, and why when you know, finally someone in the car who was a suspect and participated in the intent to kill him or to shoot him, to do harm to him, when someone is arrested 27 years later, it just lit up worldwide.
And don't you think it's ironic that somebody's going to write a book and it's basically a confession, and he doesn't realize that's going to be used against him in any way?
You can't fix stupid. And the other thing he did is Keith D. You know, he was Orlando Anderson's uncle, and he lived in Compton. He grew up in Compton, and you know, he's a gangbanger. He's a lifetime career gang member. So what does he do? He returns to the scene of the crime, and he moves to Las Vegas. So that means that they probably had him under surveillance the second he came into town. I mean, they picked him up, taking a walk with his dog. That was after they'd already indicted him. So it's like, dude, you're being watched. So I mean, why in the world would he move there? Because you know, it would have been harder, as you know, because Las Vegas, Clark County, which is the county of court of record, they would have had to have the LAPD and LA. They would have had to extradite him from LA. So he really made it much easier for them to get him.
Absolutely. Tell everybody the book you're working on.
Well, I'm writing a book right now. I'm almost finished with a proposal on a biography of Ann Rule, known as the queen of true crime, and Ann did 40 books in her lifetime, and it's quite a body of work, and I've been reading a lot of them. I'm more studying her work than I am reading, although I am reading the books, but I've interviewed a ton of people. But she, she was the first. Jack Olson, though, to give him credit, he was the first really true crime author. But Anne broke ground as a woman. She really paved the ground for the rest of us, and so I'm privileged to, and proud to be able to write about her.
Well, listen, I'm not going to take any more of your time. I want you to get back to that typewriter and finish that book, because I can't wait to read it.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Y'all, thank you for joining me to be able to talk to my friend, Kathy, and we're going to continue. There is more for the CrimeCon Holiday Escape. Don't go nowhere.
Hi everyone, I'm crime reporter and Crime HQ's Olivia LaBoyce and the host and creator of the new podcast, The Bakersfield 3, which is the podcast we're featuring for Crime HQ's brand new podcast club. Think of the podcast club like a traditional book club, but for podcasts. Together, we'll all listen to a new podcast over the course of a few weeks. You can go at your own pace, but after you listen to an episode, be sure to head to the club inside Crime HQ to share your thoughts and comments so we can all discuss together. And then we'll meet for a special live event and a Q&A with the podcast host, in this case me, and maybe even some surprise guests from the podcast that are featured along the way. Here's a little sneak peek of my podcast, The Bakersfield 3.
The first to go missing was Micah.
I need to get an officer out to my house. There's a woman that will not stop coming in my house.
What is your name?
My name is Micah, M-I-C-A-H.
2 weeks after his disappearance, his friend James was murdered.
He was scared because he knew who shot him.
And 2 weeks after that, their friend Bailey seemingly vanished.
She is legitimately missing, gone off the face of this earth.
These three people knew each other, and they're all either, at this point, dead or missing.
Their three mothers began connecting the dots.
We had no proof of anything. We just knew they were gone.
Oh my God, this is bigger than we thought it was.
What was uncovered was more devastating than anyone could have ever imagined.
It's one of the few times in my career where I've been warned, hey, you don't want to dig too deep on this one.
Murder, conspiracy to commit murder, torture, kidnapping.
They lived in a very great neighborhood. Beautiful homes, nice people.
That kind of stuff doesn't happen here. Oh, yes, it does.
There's something big about what's going on. There's something crazy about this case.
Just somebody tell me where they are, and we will go get them. I will go dig. I will go dig, and I will find them.
I gotta find her to hold her one last time, even if it is just her bones.
This is the story of the Bakersfield 3. I hope you can all join me for the new podcast club to discuss the Bakersfield 3. Unfortunately, this concludes CrimeCon at Home Holiday Escape presented by Oxygen. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and we hope to see everyone next year, whether it be in Nashville for CrimeCon May 31st through June 2nd, or on the high seas abroad, CrimeCruise from November 2nd to the 7th. I'll see you in Crime HQ's podcast club. Good night and happy holidays.